consistent feedback, the consistent negative feedback, the criticism from clients was that you guys are not proactive. You guys don't speak up. You don't tell us what to do. That not only in Infosys, but the entire IT services industry is plagued by this notion that we dutifully do what we are told. We follow orders. We follow the SOW, and we do a very good job in delivery, in project management, and so forth. But we are not innovative. We don't proactively come and share ideas on how things can be improved. And so for I had this revealing experience in our DC in Pune. I was there with one of our clients and a COO of a large mining company. And he told me this. And then a short while later, we were walking around one of the floors, and the team had drawn a business process on one of the walls. And at the end of this was the finance process that we were operating for this company. And at the end of that process, he had written 60% of the invoices are processed touch-free without manual intervention, 40% require manual intervention. And so he just very casually asked, so what is the best in the industry that you guys do? He said, oh, there is this other company, it is not exactly in your space, but similar space, and they do 88% touch-free. And he said, when were you going to tell me this? And what is it that we could be doing that help us get from 60 to 88? And then he looked at me and said, look, you see, the idea of sharing things proactively doesn't come to us. And what I found was that there is a pervasive missing confidence in our ability to be leaders, to tell people that you can actually improve. So when I thought about this, my first instinct was to combine these two observations and to create a new training by taking advantage of the massive ability to train and to create a training around design thinking, because design thinking is a key to getting that confidence. In fact, David Kelly, the founder of the Stanford D School, talks about this idea of creative confidence. That somehow around the age of 9, we lose our creativity. Children are often asking why all the time. And by the time they are 9 years old, this really depressing thing happens that our school system, the incessant homeworks and the rituals of schools drown this ability to ask the why. And suddenly when we go to a design thinking class and do a design workshop, we realize that, oh, we can still ask the why and we can still be curious, and sometimes we'll be wrong, but it's okay, we can be creative again. And it's amazing. So we put together a design workshop, a design thinking, an experiential design kind of an experience for people to learn what design thinking is all about and what its consequences are on our day-to-day work. And by now, 60,000 people of Infosys have been trained on design thinking. So over roughly 1 year, a little bit more than 1 year. And that has been an extraordinary experience. And then based on that, coming back to the point about innovation at the grassroots, one of the things that we initiated was to create a mindset where, because of this training in design thinking, to get every project in the company to innovate. To get every project team, Infosys is at the end, it's a project company. Right now, as I speak to you, we have 8,500 master projects going on in the company, which occupy our roughly 102,000 strong delivery team. And that's really the core bread and butter of the company. And the idea of this initiative, we call it Zero Distance, was to ensure that every single project going on in the company finds at least one thing that is innovative and delivers that value to the client. This is going beyond the statement of work. This is not an existing, ongoing project. This is not, that some innovative team comes and tells them what to do. It is themselves. They find it within them to come up with this mindset of innovation. So of course we have the new areas that we are working on, and here as I'm sitting in Palo Alto, actually the space itself is a great example of as you can see, the tables are writable, the wall behind me is writable. I can write on this thing, and every surface here, the glass, Even this glass is writable. We have this special coating on this glass. And the ceilings, you cannot see the ceilings, but the ceilings are open. All these things actually make a huge difference to the mindset of the employees in being able to be creative and contributing, and not just feeling intimidated by a highly finished kind of a space. So we have the teams that are working on breakthrough new areas, and we have these 3 new services that we have launched called Aikido and so forth. But the main idea was to get every person in the company to think of themselves as an innovator, and to create this mindset that the innovation department in Infosys is Infosys. There is no innovation department. And that has been, and it's still very early, it has been about 8 months. As I speak to you today, roughly 6,000 of these 8,500 master projects have already done at least one innovation in their, many of these are in Mohit's area. Actually, the 3 of the 5 biggest zero distance innovation projects are in Mohit's area. There are 3 big banks. Mohit is always very proud of that. But it is something that is happening, and it is still early. It will take time for us to understand how to really derive value from this and how to monetize this. But when you go to our campuses in India, there is an incredible energy that people feel for having become creative. It really does inspire a physical sense of confidence. And it is very, it is inspiring is the word for that. It is really very inspiring. So that is, my main point is that innovation cannot be the domain of a chosen few. It has to be something that is done at the grassroots level. Innovation can be done by anybody in HR, in finance, in sales, in delivery, product development. And it comes to us to find that culture of innovation. And that is really, there isn't any particular training for it, there isn't any particular methodology for it. It comes down to finding that, within us to be innovative. And so more than anything else, my message to all of you, my request to all of you is that the times that are changing, that are in front of us, are all about this great digital transformation of basically the world around us. And we, all of us in with our unique background, coming from India and now in leadership positions, have a unique opportunity, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to lead this transformation. And the missing ingredient in all of us that I have found, just to vastly generalize, but nonetheless, that I have found is this missing creative confidence. And getting there, of course, there is things that we can do around design thinking and rapid prototyping and creating some of these cultural elements to that. But really it comes down to within us to find that confidence, to simply speak up and have our curiosity and have the confidence to prototype it, to get some validation for it, and then share it with our audiences. Steve Jobs once said that the important thing in life is to realize that everything that we see around us was built by people who are no superior to us. And once you realize that changes everything. Then you realize that you can do the same thing that was done. That this is not just something that you have to inherit and then accept, but indeed it is something that you can change. And so that confidence, if we leaders from our Indian community develop that confidence, then between our training and our education and our background, we have what it takes to lead the great transformation that is happening all around us. And more than anything else, I would love to see, especially from our IIMs and IIMA, helping to lead that transformation. So that is what I wanted to share, and hopefully all of you have some questions for me and also for our team here.
Hi Vishal, I must interject, and I'm trying to speak up now when I say this. We have time just for one question, if that works. So who is going to be the lucky person with one question? We've got a gentleman in the center.
Hi Vishal, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So before I go to my question, I have an observation which I have acquired from my experience. To this point you had about Indians and their confidence. What I have found is, and this is a saying by Bertrand Russell, that the problem with the world is that the intelligent are full of self-doubt and the stupid are supremely confident. And it may be partly to do with the Indianness and partly the people you move around with. They tend to be the intelligent Indians. I think if you look broadly, you'll find a lot of supremely confident Indians as well. So, moving to my question though. I have that exact same learning in life. Never create an innovation department. That goes down exactly like you described. And I've been a subscriber to this philosophy that yes, it's everyone's job to innovate in whatever you're doing. And it seems that's what you're doing as well. What I have found though, the challenge with this latter approach is it leads to incrementalism. And then as leaders, we are always, forced to defend our incrementalist approach while these unicorns are out delivering transformational innovation which will disrupt us. And so painting that picture of how the incrementalism will add up to the transformation becomes a big communication challenge, and I'm not sure if you've seen any success story which can then help those in this camp bolster their campaign of grassroots, everyone's job being innovation versus the guys saying, give me some money, I'll set up this department and I'll launch the new innovative thing.
Great points. Fantastic points. You see, you're absolutely right. The idea of a zero distance for innovation like that could very easily be viewed as an incremental Kaizen type continuous improvement style innovation, which is okay. And you're absolutely right that when you do that, I mean, if the Japanese industry is a classic example of that. They were improving in every dimension, and then all of a sudden they found themselves completely disrupted in ways that they did not foresee. The way to avoid that is Arthur Koestler wrote about this in the 1960s, and later on Alan Kay talked about this extensively. There is this idea of the pink plane, which is the plane of incremental innovation, the incremental improvement based on metrics from the past, where you say that the next innovation is 10% better that, or 2x better this, or 5 times better this. But it is based on metrics which compare what we are doing to the past, and the drawback of that is that all this innovation is ultimately linked to the way that the world used to be. But then there is also the blue plane, which is the plane that is, in some sense orthogonal to the pink plane, and where we think about a completely new idea, a completely new way to do something, where the future that we foresee or the future that we construct is not an increment of the past. So the way to do that is what I was saying earlier about creating an out of context set of people. But don't call them innovators. Innovators are everybody. Everybody is doing innovation. They might have different flavors of innovation, and we don't even have to highlight the different flavors of innovation, because the moment we highlight that, we in essence prevent ourselves from taking advantage of certain kinds of thinking and so forth, which is just silly. But having a team that thinks about things outside the context of what we are doing presently is the way that we can deal with this sort of the unicorn phenomena. The Xerox PARC itself was a great example of that. They set up this camp here, and but more than setting it up in Palo Alto, etc., they were completely disconnected, and it was a very small team. It was 32 people in the end who, and once Alan and I had once discussed this, he actually works very closely with us, that it takes about $5 to $7 million a year of expense today, and roughly 35 people, to be able to establish a team like that, which just basically does breakthrough thinking and comes up with completely new kinds of ideas. But the key is to have it be completely open, and be open to anybody, to have no restrictions on them, to not produce that, you are this level 3 or horizon 3 or whatever McKinsey calls them, that in the next 5 years you are supposed to produce 10x better this and so on. That's all some radical ideas and things that can have a tremendous impact on what we do. And chances are that these breakthrough thinkings will happen. And also to be open to every once in a while acquire new thinking while it is still small, and keep the culture from the core company, to not hand over the new culture to the new guys, because then you will just lose the identity of the company. And you look at many large IT companies today, and they no longer resemble even culturally what it is that they used to do, simply because they have managed to acquire themselves into a deformed shape that we can no longer recognize. So that is the key. But in essence, I totally agree with you that the idea of incrementalism cannot prevent us from engaging in breakthrough thinking, but breakthrough thinking is something that requires establishing a team that sits outside the context of what we do on a day-to-day basis.
It would be quite a travesty if we are not able to sneak in one more question given the trouble we went through with the VC. So there's just one more question. A quick one on that.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Sekar, for your observations on confidence. I believe that is the central issue with India. If I may ask a question beyond the IT department, where a lot of educated people are in the IT sector, but this is more pan-India. If India is going to become and achieve its potential to contribute to the world and become a big superpower, you mentioned the word confidence. I use another phrase, which is self-belief, because I believe the strongest psychological advantage anyone has is a strong self-image. So my question is, what is the ecosystem in India that has created to this lack of a strong self-belief and lack of self-confidence, and how can that be corrected? I'm talking about pan-India, not just IT, where intelligent people enter the sector. Thank you.
I don't know the answer to that. That is a great question. I don't know the answer to that. There are some hints, some guides, some ideas. One is to embrace failure. We tend to create this mindset of once you fail, then then you are done. There is a stigma attached to failure. I think that we have to separate the failure of projects from or failure of ideas from the failure of people. If people are encouraged to fail fast, to fail early, fail often, it creates a mindset of experimentation and trying out new ideas. We have to have a culture of trust. I often find, for whatever sort of reasons, we don't have that culture, and yet a culture of trust and empowerment, but extreme accountability. When I was at Stanford, when I first came here, I used to teach some classes, and there was this notion of the honor code. And one time I was sitting inside the class during the test, and one student came to me and said, you're not supposed to be here. And I did not know that the principle of the honor code was that the instructor, the examiner, in fact, is not in the room when the test is being taken. That you assume, you expect that the students will abide by the honor code and will not cheat. And that in fact, but the flip side of the honor code is that if you are found cheating and the other students verify that you indeed were cheating, then you are immediately barred from the university. So there are extreme consequences of that. But you have this culture of decentralization, autonomy, trust, and empowerment, compensated by accountability and so on. And I find that not there. This command and